Hello?
Hi, it's Pat. Is this Merle?
Yeah, it is. I'm
Okay.
I'm here.
And Regent Bud is also on the phone at this point.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Hi.
Oh, good morning. Hi, David Levinson on the phone. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Naomi.
Hi, Pat. This is Jane. I'm on.
Hi, Jane.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Merle.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Mary Ann from Central.
Hi,
Good
Marianne.
morning.
Regent
Now,
Howard.
don't forget to make the announcement at the outset or someone to mute all
Oh,
phones unless
definitely.
they're speaking. Someone has to remind everyone, every meeting.
Okay.
That's instead of pointing to the exit.
Yes. Yeah. I thought I missed Aaron's little presentation there of the exits and crisis in case of an emergency.
Hi.
Hello.
It's Elsa.
Hello. Hi, Elsa.
everybody.
How are you?
Oh, wonderful.
I think, Holly, is Holly on the line?
Yes, good morning. I'm here.
Great.
Okay. Okay, I guess we have, Kalina, are you on the line?
I'm here. Good morning.
Okay. And I don't know if any students are, do we have a student on the line, do you know? Pat, expected?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we definitely have the members of the committee and
Definitely.
most certainly the quorum. And it's just after 9:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Two things that I would like to ask, first of all, is that I know Dr. Hegedus has a very important meeting at 10 o'clock, and he is going to be here for the doctoral program at Southern Connecticut State University. So I'm going to ask that we do that at the beginning of the agenda after the consent items, and unless I hear any objections. Hearing none, then that's what we'll do. And before I begin with the formal meeting as the agenda, I just would like to make a few comments. These last 2 weeks since May 25th have been really difficult to live, as I'm sure most of you would agree with. It's been a terrible thing to watch, and coming on top of the coronavirus and the fears that we're going to come back to that, it just has been a very, very difficult moment in time. And I have thought and tried to reflect back on history a little bit. I know what we're talking about, social justice and inequities and mistreatment go back to the beginning of our country. And we've seen changes along the way, but not significant ones. What I reflected on was in my own lifetime, and I can go back a little further than some of you probably can, or most of you probably can, I think of the 1960s. In the 1960s, were also years where terrible things happened. We saw 3 assassinations. We saw civil unrest. We saw the Vietnam War and the unrest that came with the Vietnam War. And there were moments that I think I felt like I feel today, that how are we going to get out of it? But I was extremely hopeful. I was a young person at that time. And as I reflect back, there were some good things that did happen and came out of some of the awful things of the 60s. One of them was student financial aid legislation, Title IV. If we didn't have Title IV, we would not have been able to help many people get a college degree through the years. And we have seen an increasing number of minoritized students actually benefit from that legislation. And of course, after Title IV, we saw Title IX. So from all of the horrible things and the unrest, we were able to get much accomplished, but not enough. There are so many things that are still wrong in this country. There is so much social injustice, and we have to work harder to make sure that change continues and that we don't stop, we don't go backwards, we move forward and get things done. One of the things that I thought about was the important role higher education plays in social justice. We have increased our enrollment of minoritized students remarkably during the years. Unfortunately, there is still so much inequity, and we're going to hear about some of that later today when we look at how our minority students do at our community colleges and how we are trying to make a change in that regard. So I think those are important areas that we have to look at what we are doing. In addition, our colleges, I think we have a lot of people on mute. We have a lot of curriculum that deals with social justice. We train law enforcement officers, and we are very much involved in policy through our criminal justice programs. We also have education programs that are critical, changing what happens in the classroom and graduation rates from high school and then into college. We are very involved in many programs in social justice, and I think what I am going to ask the provost to do is to begin to look at the curriculum to see if there are other things that we should be doing to make sure that change happens. And I'm going to ask that the first area be our law enforcement and criminal justice programs. I think we are training the police officers of the future, and we have to make sure that we're doing a good job so that we do not have a repeat of May 25th and George Floyd. So I'm going to ask the provost to look into this. I know I had a brief conversation about it yesterday, and the state of California is doing a remarkable job. They have appointed a task force to begin the work, and then they will look at the colleges to complete the work. So I'm going to ask her to look at the best approach for Connecticut and to talk to President Erjabian. I haven't had a chance to do that about this, and so we can move forward and hopefully make some significant changes, or at least know that what we're doing is absolutely the right thing. So with that, I want to move on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 1st. May I have a motion?
So moved, it's Naomi.
A second?
Aviva, second.
Thank you. We have are there any changes in the minutes, corrections? All right, then the minutes stand as written, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Quick motion on the consent items on the agenda. If anyone wants anything taken off, this is the time to ask for it. Hearing no requests, may I have a motion to approve the consent items?
Aviva, moves.
Okay, you get that, Pat?
Yes, I did.
Second, let Naomi move. I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, Naomi moved and Aviva second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. All right, let's go down to new programs. The item I suggested we move to the beginning of the agenda, EDD in Consular Education and Supervision at Southern Connecticut State University. And I'm going to ask Dr. Gates to introduce the item. Oh, wait a minute, I need a motion first. I do need a motion in a second.
Aviva, so moved. Second, Holly.
Holly, second. Okay. Now, Jane.
Thank you. Southern Connecticut State University seeks licensure and accreditation of a program in counselor education and supervision leading to a doctorate of education. In light of the recent travesties that we've seen here and inequities in our country and the impact, it is a time where we need to focus on behavioral analysis. Provost Bob Present will provide additional information on the program.
Thank you, Provost Gates. This is an important program, and you're absolutely right. At this particular time, it's especially important. I'd like to turn it over to our expertise in the area, the Dean of the College of Education at Southern, Dean Stephen Hegedus. Stephen? Dr. Hegedus.
Dr. Hegedus? You may be on mute.
I believe he couldn't attend until 10 a.m. because of a separate meeting.
I thought just the opposite. Oh, I thought he had to leave at 10 a.m. He's not coming on till 10? Is
I
that
believe
correct?
that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Was that you?
It was Trudy,
Regent
yes.
Harris, would we
Yes.
be able to delay, or is Dr. Bonjo on? No,
I
would
am on.
expect-
Yes, this is Dr. Bonjo.
Would you rather continue, or would you rather go back to it when he can get on? It's up to you. I'm sorry, that's my error.
That's actually
Dr.
fine.
Bonjo,
Yes.
I would just ask if Dr. Bonjo is comfortable or would prefer to wait for Dean Hegedus.
I've spoken with Dean Hegedus, and I believe that I have the information that is necessary to go forward if folks would like to continue, since we've already started in this direction.
Okay, then why don't we continue? And I apologize, I had that reversed.
That's okay.
Okay. So let's continue
Sure.
then. Yeah.
Okay, so this program would be a doctorate in counselor education and supervision, and we very recently had last spring a successful review from our accreditation body, which would be an external review. That's the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, so that's KCREP. The means by which KCREP accredits doctoral programs is that they require that the program be implemented for a year before they complete the external review. This is actually very timely because our reaccreditation visit after having received approval for our 2-year accreditation would coincide with the timely need for the team to revisit to review the doctoral program. So our 2-year review would be flush with the time that we would need the team to return to campus to review and approve the doctoral program. We would be providing a KCREP accredited doctoral program in an area where there is a desert for KCREP accredited doctoral degrees. So everyone pretty much in the New England region, and that's Connecticut included, of course, needs to import their counselor educators and clinical supervisors for clinical mental health counselors and school counselors. And so at this time, we are bringing people in who are trained to work in the KCREP model, but they are not people who have been trained in the specific issues and needs of the state of Connecticut. So this program would be designed to train individuals in the specific needs of the state of Connecticut. It's also built as a hybrid model so that it is accessible to students from across the state as well as the greater New England area. It's cost effective, so it increases access. And we have embedded specific outreach efforts to introduce and invite a cohort that is built and comprised of diverse students. So we are also building a program that is pandemic prepared so that our students will go into the field knowing how to deliver hybrid models of services through telemental health training, telesupervision, and also providing teaching at the in higher education using flipped classroom models, hybrid models, and online delivery, as well as on-ground services. I'm wondering if at this point, are there any questions that people would like to ask?
Okay, are there questions particularly about the program? Yeah, who's first?
Who'd you call on, Merle?
Yeah.
It's Aviva. Did you call on me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Today, in the are there master degree people teaching counseling at all in the industry? What is happening in educating counselors today?
Yes, I can certainly answer that question. The Council for Accreditation and for Counseling and Related Educational Programs requires that individuals who train master's level counselors have a doctorate that is in counselor education and supervision. Specifically, the doctoral program in counselor education at UConn closed because it was not KCREP accredited, and therefore graduates of that program were having a hard time getting hired as counselor educators because counselor education programs specifically require a doctorate in counselor education and supervision from a KCREP accredited program.
I guess I would assume that if UConn wanted to get it accredited, they could have easily done so. Why wasn't it accredited?
It's actually not an easy process to get a program accredited, and it seems that, I don't know their decision-making process, but I did reach out to them and ask them the reason for the program closing, and they said that it wasn't for lack of interest in the program, but that it was because they had chosen not to pursue KCREP accreditation, and that therefore their graduates were struggling to find work in the field.
Do you happen to know what kind of enrollment they had in the program initially before they dropped it, or how long they had the program?
My understanding is that they had a very standard enrollment of 6 to 8 students per cycle. I have already met with 4 students that, even though we have done absolutely no advertising for this program at all whatsoever, students are hearing, potential applicants are hearing about this program. I've had 4 people reach out to me and already spend an hour with me on WebEx discussing the program and expressing their interest in the program. And these are each members or individuals who represent multiple intersectional minority statuses. So there is substantial interest in the program, and that's even without us having done any advertising at all.
What are these people working at today, the 4 that you discussed? What are their current occupations and jobs?
One individual is working in a residential facility for clinically disturbed populations. One is working in substance use, and one is working in schools. The other one, I'm fairly certain, is in a directorial and managerial role at this point, and so it's already at a very high level in the profession, but would like to have doctoral training in leadership and management.
Okay, but the people you've described are all acting as counselors except for the last one, correct? They're not acting as teaching or supervising counselors, correct?
That's correct, because without the doctoral degree, they aren't qualified to occupy those roles.
Well, but it isn't like there's a job that they need to get this degree for, that they know of. They would be going into the job market for a different job, I would take it.
There are 3 tracks that are embedded in the structure of the curriculum that I built. One track is for counselor educators. Those would be individuals who would primarily be interested in occupying roles as faculty. The 2 of the individuals that I spoke with are very interested in occupying faculty roles. One of the tracks that I have provided is clinical supervision. One of the individuals that I spoke to is interested in clinical supervision track, and then obviously the other person that I mentioned is interested in the managerial and leadership track. The reason why I constructed the program with those 3 tracks was to provide opportunities for individuals to meet their career goals and also not introduce market saturation, so that we would be able to continue to keep the program active regardless of what market trends were happening in any one of those 3 tracks.
My question, doctorate in counselor itself, in counseling itself, is there such a degree that's being offered?
There is not a doctoral degree. No, there is not a doctoral degree in counseling. Counseling and counselor education are related degrees, but counselor educators are the people who train counseling professionals.
Right. So we don't have a degree in just counseling itself, just this one, even though it has 3 tracks, and one would be supervision of clinical counseling, which is the closest thing to a doctorate in counseling. Is that correct? Do I understand that?
Yes, that is correct. But in the profession of counseling, a master's degree is considered a practitioner terminal degree. In order to train practitioners, then you need the doctoral degree.
Got it. That's really, you answered a question I wanted to ask but didn't articulate. The master's is the terminal. I understand that. Thank you very much.
Other questions? I have one question because I know that we are often concerned about the cost of starting new programs, especially when we know what budgets are going to look like in the next 2 years. I know that you just recently started a doctoral program in social work, and it's not in the same department, but I'm curious if perhaps someone knows how that is going. Are you attracting the number of students that you anticipated? I think it's relatively new, so it's probably just completing the first year, but maybe you have some data you could share with us so we know that 8 is a realistic number.
Hi, Regent.
I don't have hard numbers for what is happening in the social work program, in the Doctor of Social Work program. However, I have spoken with 3 faculty members fairly regularly as I've been moving through the program development process, and they are very happy with the robust number of applicants that they've had, and they're very happy with the way that the program is unfolding. So as we've had these conversations, the success of the doctorate in social work program has been one of the kind of things that has helped us to understand that we can offer this doctoral degree and we can be successful in providing it, because their program is doing quite well. They have a robust applicant pool. We're not in competition with their applicant pool because their applicants can't apply to our program because they haven't met the criteria, and our applicants can't apply to their program because our applicants will not meet the criteria for their program. So based on what I have heard from Bill Rowe and Liz McDonald and a couple of other people in the program, they're very successful. The Doctor of Social Work program has been very successful.
Regent Harris, I can speak to the heart is on that program. This is Bob Cleveland.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. We have very solid numbers in that program, and they are right on track. We were predicting cohorts of 15 per year. We're going into our 3rd year of that program. And the first cohort was 18. So that was above our predicted number. And right now we are predicting a total class enrollment starting our 3rd year of 44 students. We had attrition of 2. So we are tracking very well, and we're expecting first graduating class this year at 13. We're doing well there.
Okay. Thank you. The other question I have is, I believe, how many, when you're looking at a ratio in a doctoral program to faculty to students because of the intensive need during the culmination of the program to have direct support. What is a number that you generally look at? So you need to have, I assume you're going to have, I know this is not a research base, but you still are going to have a committee, I assume.
Yes, we do have plans that the students that are coming in will need to have committees. We recently hired 2 new faculty in the Department of Counseling and School Psychology, and we are confident that we will be able to meet the needs of the incoming doctoral students. And in fact, having the doctoral students be part of the department will provide support to us as faculty, because our students will, in their very first semester, be taking their introductory supervision course, and then in their very second semester be taking their teaching course, so that they will be able to provide support to our faculty and reduce the need for us to hire adjuncts for training the master's level students and providing supervision to the master's level students. So, it's a program that is set up so that it will, in many ways, support itself.
Other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to say, what are your projections for enrollment to support yourself? I know you just mentioned that you have 4 students you've been talking to, but what is your projection ultimately for first year, second year, third year?
So our program, we're projecting, will be somewhat smaller than the Department of Social Work doctorate. We would be hoping to admit 8 students for our first cohort. We've projected potential attrition of 1 student during the first year cycle, 2 students during the second year cycle, with a graduating class of 6 students for the first cohort. And we are open to accepting up to 10 students if we have an applicant pool that has that many strong candidates. So in speaking with my colleagues, we feel prepared to receive 8, and we're also prepared to receive up to 10 per semester. And we feel confident that we will be able to support those students in the various tracks that we've identified.
Looking at your projections in the material, you expect to almost triple it by the third year. Are there jobs outstanding today that require this education doctorate in Connecticut?
Yes, absolutely. We've collected a number of letters that speak to the need for doctoral prepared clinical supervisors, as well as directors and leaders and counselor educators. We have also attended several professional conferences where there are career panels and opportunities for students to be hired. And as I mentioned earlier, the entire Mid-Atlantic region is pretty much a desert for KCREP accredited doctoral programs. At our most recent conference, there were over 100 counselor educator positions open, and there were less than 60 applicants that were qualified to fill those positions. So nationally there's a need, but there's even a stronger need in the North Atlantic region, and specifically within Connecticut. We are consistently receiving inquiries from various managers about, do we know of individuals who are doctoral prepared and clinical supervisors that can work in the field of counseling, and oftentimes we are unable to provide them with more than a very short list of names, because those people are not available in this area because there is no feeder program, and we'd like to answer that need.
Thank you. If
Hello,
nobody has
Stephen
any
Haggett
other
is here.
questions, go ahead. Oh,
Hello, I just,
thank you.
Stephen Haggard is here. Just wanted to introduce myself.
Okay, thank you.
you.
And I apologize, I had the time reversed when you couldn't join us, so we started without you, but everyone's doing very well, answering questions.
I am sure. Thank you.
The last, Viva, you have
Go
one more
ahead,
question?
Merle. I had one last question about cost.
Okay.
In your schedule, you put down in the third year faculty at $144,000 and a tutor for $49,000, so forth. But you're talking about having 21 students. Is that adequate increase? You already in your narrative said you have one increase, and you said something about an additional 6 faculty. Am I wrong about something here?
The Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs requires that in addition to the 3 faculty that are required for each master's level program, that there be 2 faculty present that would be available to be specifically focusing on the doctoral program. And we have that at this point. We have the number of faculty that are required by the accrediting body to satisfy the number of students that we have projected as incoming and graduating from the program. So according to our accrediting body, the number of faculty that we currently have is adequate to produce a doctoral program and graduate students at that level.
But you haven't allocated any of your time to this cost. In other words, the $144,000 I see is just additive, not allocated for the time of the other faculty, from what I gather. Is that correct?
That I would need for Dean Haggis to respond to, because I feel like my understanding of how budgets work is inadequate.
Good time.
Okay.
Yeah, you're referring to the third year, the 141,000. Is that correct? Just
yes.
Didn't
I
quite catch
wondered
the
the
question.
costs look too small. The costs look too small for the amount of supervision that's required for the size of the class that is related to the respective years. Obviously, it's not the full load of faculty that's going to be required. As Merle mentioned, the supervision by existing faculty is not included in this schedule.
Right. We were looking at balancing new costs at that point in time with
right.
enrollments. Yeah. And I just wanted to add another point on the budgeting to Dr. Bonjo's point, that this has been, to get to the position where we're at now, has been part of a longer-term strategic planning, working closely with the provost in terms of where we envisioned need, and so the hiring that we have done has been strategic. And with a mind to moving towards this proposal and others in the past.
Thank you.
My time up.
I don't know who has it, but it's okay. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Are we all here? Okay, yeah. Okay, Aviva, is that okay?
Well, I hear it. It just seems to me that it might be a program that maybe we want to postpone starting given the situation today.
When were you beginning? Sure. When you're talking about implementing it? In September or the following?
No, it would start in fall 2021.
Okay. I think that is important. A piece of information that may have been in there, but I didn't recall. The question I have is, we talked about it's going to be a hybrid model, and you'll be able to take students from out of state. Does that mean that you will be able to do most of the work online, so that an out-of-state student would only have to come to Connecticut every once in a while? Is that correct, or am I wrong?
So, Yes, so our classes will be delivered in synchronous and asynchronous format. And so we will limit the amount of time that students are required to be on campus. And the amount of time that they would be required to be on campus would be also determined by the student's needs. You know, if the student would be living, for example, in Rhode Island and have a relationship with an agency or a university where they would be able to conduct field hours and gain experience, then there would be less need for them to come to this particular campus. So we would develop a relationship wherever they would be able to engage in their clinical hours. So for us, the flexibility of the program has a hybrid delivery with asynchronous and synchronous courses, so that we would be delivering synchronous courses on Zoom. And typically when I build a class like this, I use a flipped classroom format where they're doing a great deal of work online, and then we have meetings that are synchronous every other week, and those meetings are specifically designed for students to practice the skills that they're learning in the materials that are provided online. So this format has worked out very well for our master's level students. It makes it so that they're able to continue working full time while they're doing their master's degrees, and I have a great deal of confidence that the individuals who are working at the doctoral level will also be able to use this format because of the flexibility of the design. So yes, it will be online, hybrid, synchronous, and asynchronous, and students will be able to, those students who would like to access campus and use the resources available through the Southern system will have access to that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Other questions? Oh, okay, then.
I just wanted to be,
Hello?
Stephen Hayes here. I just wanted to be sure that we're looking at the same budget as well. The budget is on page 9. I'm just looking at the packet. It's on page 92. When you click on this counselor ed and supervision, it goes to a different, goes to the last one. Okay.
No, I think we are looking at that budget. I think the real question is, why is there a blank for full-time faculty? And you've explained why.
Okay.
And this is one of the issues that we're dealing with, and we're going to hope somehow to remedy when we're looking at budgets in the future. If you're using faculty that you've already paid for, the question is, should that be in there, because it is a cost of the program, because it means they're not doing something else. So I understand why it's that way now, but it's something that is constantly coming up, and we haven't decided how to remedy it yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, other questions? Can I call for the vote then? All in favor of the approval of the doctorate in counselor education to be in supervision to be at Southern Connecticut State College to be implemented in fall of 2021.
Aye.
Howard?
Aye.
It's Aviva. I abstain.
You abstain, okay. We have 2 in favor and 1 abstention, so the motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for the information, and good luck.
Thank you, Regent Harris. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, let's go back to the top of the agenda then, and the next item will be suspensions, and the first is a suspension in environmental sciences at Middlesex Community College, and it's on page 30 of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved. It's Naomi.
Second, it's Holly.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Dr. Gates.
Thank you. Middlesex Community College requests approval to suspend the Environmental Sciences Associate of Science degree for a period of 3 years to explore the viability of the program. They've had very low enrollment and interest in this program. Dean Shirley Mathis will provide additional information.
Thank you. Dean Mathis?
Yes, hello, good morning. The Environmental Science program is a program that really requires a program coordinator at the head. About a year ago now, the program coordinator resigned from that position, and so we have not had a full-time person to do the work that's required to review the curriculum to meet current industry standards and the changing environment of the landscape of environmental science studies. We have lost a little student interest in the program, so it really needs to be examined. Increased partnership with the high schools need to be explored, as well as building better relationships with our community partners. We also in the system have 2 other programs, TAP Biology, TAP Biochemistry, and another one, TAP Chemistry, that students can also enter and graduate from and still be able to get the core foundation classes they needed when they transfer to a 4-year program, because all 3 of those programs share the majority of foundational courses, with the exception of some few specialty courses that will be particularly related to environmental science. Until the college is able to budget-wise hire a full-time program coordinator who can do the extensive work and program curriculum review and building those necessary partnerships with the high school and the employers, we thought it best to suspend the program at this time.
Thank you. Are there questions? You did say that
it's Naomi. I'm sorry,
Okay,
I
good.
missed something. Did you say we've been without a person to lead the program for a year?
Yes. I came on as the Dean of Academic and Student Affairs this past fall, and upon my beginning of my tenure in this role, the program coordinator resigned and took employment in another state.
So what happened to the students in the program? There were students in the program, though?
Yes. So during this interim time, we were able to have the physics full-time person step in, as well as hire a part-time temporary lecturer to come in and continue to teach out the courses. We looked at data to see how many of our students were left in the program, and we began working with those students to graduate the ones that were able to graduate. And then the other students that still have some time to graduate, we transitioned them into the other TAP programs. And that's what we're continuing to do at this time.
So what does it say if I look in the catalog?
Currently, until I can get this program passed through this process, it's still listed. It still lists that we have this program on the books. Again, going through this process will allow us to put this program in official suspension and then go forward and remove it from the catalog at this point. We don't want to continue to have students enroll in a program that is in a suspended status, believing that they will obtain a degree at the end. If students are still interested, as they are now in their application choosing environmental science, we flag those applications, and the physics as well as the part-time temporary lecturer and advisors then contact those students and advise them into the other TAP programs.
So, thank you. So, Merle or Dr. Gates, I guess my question is, do we have any protocols about how long suspended programs can be suspended?
No. There is nothing that specifies the number of years that a program may be suspended. It very much depends upon the ability of the institution, the capacity of the institution, and the ability of those in the discipline to bring that program up to industry standards.
This one does say for a period. This says a period of 3 years in the resolution, though.
Correct. That's
Right.
what they've requested. The institution has requested a period of 3 years, which seems to be reasonable given that they don't have a full-time faculty dedicated to this and the additional work that it will be required. I'm very much sure dependent upon their advisory boards and the industry standards. So, but there isn't anything specifically in our procedures or protocol that limits that number of years. Typically, we see 2, but 3 years fall within, I think, a reasonable number of years, as long as the institution has ensured that on its website and catalog, that program has been deleted, so that we are in compliance with NETSI standards with respect to transparency.
Okay, so we need to do, I mean, if I were the institution, I wouldn't want to discontinue the program and then have to start all over again to get it approved. I get that. So we really need to do this for students,
Yes.
otherwise they're not transparent.
Yes, I think the difference is if Middlesex thought it was not an important program, they would just terminate it and teach the students out. But obviously, they feel there's potential for this program and interest in this program, and therefore they want the suspension to modify it and hire the appropriate staff. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I fought hard to not even bring this program into suspension. I reached out to other colleges to see if this could be a shared program, and just due to other people's program and the workload, I just was not able to get it done. But I fought to not even get it into suspension, but felt that for all the reasons noted, it was best for the college and best for the students to put it in suspension until the program can be what it needs to be for our students.
Thank you. It's disappointing that we couldn't have a collaboration, but maybe that will come in the future.
Hopefully.
Okay, other questions? If hearing none, I will call the question on the approval of the suspension for the environmental science program at Middlesex Community College. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone want to abstain? The motion carries, hearing no one. Okay, let's go on then to the next program, which is a suspension also. It's the accounting program. It's a OCP program, and I hope that you will explain what exactly an OCP is. It was a little not clear in the staff report. But it's a suspension again for 3 years until May of 2023. May I have a motion?
Naomi, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, and Aviva seconded. Naomi first moved, Aviva second. Okay, Dr. Gates.
Central Connecticut State University requests approval to suspend a program in accounting leading to an official certificate program, also known as OCP, until May 2023, resulting from a long-standing trend of low enrollment. And to provide additional information, I assume it's Provost Dowander or the Associate Vice President, Dr. Marianne Fallon, who will provide additional information.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is Dr. Marianne Fallon from Central. To explain more about the accounting OCP, it is a 12-credit certificate that was designed to help students who had maybe a business background but not an accounting background obtain the necessary information and experience in order to become a certified public accountant. So that was the purpose of the program, but the OCP did not perform in terms of its enrollment projections as well as we would have liked. For two reasons, perhaps. One is because, and probably the primary reason, is because the OCP is not qualified for financial aid. So students coming into the program may have to take some prerequisites to be qualified for the 4 courses that were required for the certificate. And some of our students may be interested in doing that, but however, may not have the financial means to do so, as the certificate does not qualify for financial aid. A second complicating factor was, although the program was marketed strongly out of the gate, that kind of support was unfortunately not available to keep the program or the interest in the program going. So for those two reasons, as well as the School of Business in general wanting to take some time to reevaluate the OCP and how it fits into their larger plan of AACSB accreditation, the decision was made by the School of Business and the department to suspend the program for 3 years in order to revision or revise, rethink how this program can support our students and how it fits into the School of Business's larger programming. Thank you.
Questions?
This is Naomi. If it doesn't qualify for student financial aid now, what comfort do we have that it will in 3 years?
To be completely honest, we don't. This is something that we would try to examine during the suspension to ensure that this would be viable moving forward.
Because I guess, you know, as Regent Harris said at the beginning, we always have these conversations about programs that we should maintain and those we should discontinue. If this has never been supported with student financial aid, I guess I would lean to just discontinuing it. And feel free to tell me what's wrong with that reasoning.
Hello, this is David Dowalder, Provost at the university. One possibility, certainly we are going through a search process for a new dean right now. One possibility is fundraising through the accounting firms and through alumni. So that could be a possibility of raising monies that might be able to help students as they pursue such a program. Again, we really do want to look at all the different possibilities, which is why we are asking for suspension.
Other questions?
Do we have any, it's Naomi again, do we have any, this is a general question, do we have any, again, procedures or protocols about how we fundraise and for what purposes it can be used to ensure that there's some consistency across the system for students wherever they're enrolled?
No, because most of the fundraising is done through the foundations, and the foundations are technically private entities. I mean, they're nonprofits. They are associated with the university, and we definitely have some protocols that they have to follow about that association. But it really is up to the foundation and the university to determine what money they can raise and for what purposes. With exceptions, as I have said, there are some things they can't do. And perhaps, Dr. Nunez, you may be able to add to that from your experience.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute. The foundations will fundraise for specific programs, but they must apply they must use the funds that they raise equitably across the student population. So they couldn't say, for example, only students with a high GPA in that program can get funding. There would be issues of diversity, of equity, of gender equity, racial, ethnic equity. So it is possible to have the foundation fundraise just for this program, but they would have to have a target population that they would go after for funding, either alums from the program or companies, accounting companies who would, give money for scholarships for the program. But I guess my final point would be that it would probably be uneven year after year. You can't guarantee that you're going to fundraise so much money every year.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Merle, does any other university in the system offer this certificate?
Hello?
To my knowledge, no.
No, okay.
To my knowledge, but I have not done an extensive analysis to see if it does.
Other questions?
I think the point of not being able to rely on fundraising year after year is a very good one.
Yeah, and I think that may be the determination they make during the suspension, that the money is not easy to raise and they'll have to continue to raise it year after year. So, but that's a decision that they'll have to make if they want to bring the program back. I have a feeling this is one we may see a termination on ultimately, but we don't know.
Is 3 years appropriate time period?
That's the request, and we have, as I said, that seems to be frequently what we're doing. We had the one before we did 3 years.
It is an appropriate time period to do what the institutions need to do. If they're bringing on, for example, a new academic lead, an academic dean, there's a search that has to take place. I'm sure they will have to acquire some kind of empirical evidence, whether it's surveys. They have to work very closely with the industry advisory boards. So we're looking at least, that's a 2 years. That's a 2 years with someone coming in new to the seat, getting the information. So, and then the third year anticipating what possible changes may be made to make that program viable. One of the givens, and I think that regents are all correct, is that we do know that if the program is ineligible, the OCP for Title IV, that remains constant. It will continue to be ineligible. So therefore, the institution has to provide evidence of additional financial support for those students who cannot pay for the certificate from their own finances. But I think 3 years, generally speaking, is a reasonable time frame for what the institutions are moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll take hearing none. I'll take a vote on the motion to approve the suspension of the accounting OCP program at Central Connecticut State University for a period of 3 years, or till actually the date is in the resolution, May of, I think, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And the final item on suspensions on the agenda is also a Central Connecticut State University program. It's the music education program, the Master of Science at Central Connecticut State University on page 38. Dr. Gates?
It's supposed to be 11:30.
Let me take a motion, please.
A motion.
Page 38. A motion, please. Okay. A second.
I'll make a move for a second, whatever.
She's like, please explain to me how you think you're going to increase enrollment and how you're going to come up with this money. She goes, if my calculations are right, what you're paying faculty is outweighing what you're going to bring in for revenue.
Right, simple. Where's your comptroller?
Yeah. So she's.
Yeah. Excuse me, I have no idea.
Yeah, she's hammering them.
Mute yourself. Mute your phone. Regents and everyone now have heard your conversation offline. We've heard it. Please mute your phones.
Right, because we can't, I have no idea who was speaking and what they were speaking about. So now we're on to the music education leading to a Master of Science at Central Connecticut State University, suspension until December of 2021. Now this is only a year because it's a very different kind of a program. Can I have a motion?
Naomi,
I
so
move, Aviva.
Okay. Aviva moves, and Holly seconds. That's fine. Thank you. So hard to do it this way. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dr. Gates.
Central Connecticut State University requests approval to suspend a program in music education leading to a Master of Science in response to, quite clearly, recommendations made by the accrediting body, the National Association of Schools of Music, NASM. Dr. Marianne Fallon will provide additional details.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. Our Master of Science in Music Education degree program is designed to provide the certified music teacher with professional training beyond the baccalaureate degree, beyond the licensure, in music education, performance, composition, music theory, music history, and education. However, our program has seen declining enrollment over time, and also it's been entwined with a summer music institute, which also has seen some declining enrollment. So given our most recent visit from the accrediting body, NASM, it was recommended that we draw very bright lines between our Summer Music Institute and our MS in Music Education program, and we are requesting a year's suspension in order to revisit and revise the curriculum so that we can create a stronger program moving forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Hearing none, I will take a vote on the motion to suspend the program, master's degree program in music education for 1 year until 2021. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I do want to correct myself. It's till December of 2021, so it's a year and a half. I said the wrong thing, but the motion is correct. Okay, let's move on. The next are program modifications. And one thing I do want to say, I want to, before we go into modifications, I really appreciate that the institutions are coming forward at times with suspensions. It means that they are examining their programs and they just want to make sure that a termination is where they should go, or a complete, properly revamping of the program. So I think this is really good to see this happening. It addresses some of our concerns about new programs because we're balancing that, I think, with some suspensions and probably terminations. Okay, modification, the civil engineering program leading to the Bachelor of Science at Central Connecticut State University. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Hello?
Holly?
Holly, okay. Second? Naomi,
Second, Aviva. Oh,
okay.
Naomi and I hang in waiting for the next person.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Gates.
Thank you. Central Connecticut State University seeks approval to modify a 130-credit civil engineering program leading to a Bachelor of Science. The credits have been reduced in the modified program, as well as the curriculum, in response to what they describe as a really rapidly advanced change in technology. So this is an effort, again, to ensure that industry standards are met. An exception to the normalization policy has been granted. Dr. Marianne Fallon, Assistant Vice President, will provide additional information. Associate Vice President, for Academic Affairs, will provide additional information.
Thank you
Dr.
again,
Fallon.
Dr. Gates. Thank you, Regent Harris. The Department of Engineering seeks to modify and streamline its BS in civil engineering to better align with ABET accreditation standards and, as Dr. Gates said, meet the needs of industry and, importantly, our students. The program was initially approved at 130 credits and exempted from the credit normalization policy. The proposed modification will reduce the total credits to degree to 128, making the program more competitive with others in the region. The proposed curricular changes respond to workforce demands and better position the program to maintain ABET accreditation. For example, the increased emphasis on highway and concrete design will better prepare our students for careers in transportation. No additional resources are required to implement these changes, and the pro forma budget reflects typical operations and a healthy program. Enrollment has been solid, with typically more than 100 students in headcount enrollment and averaging 23 conferrals over the past 3 years. The job outlook is strong, with a projected 9.7% growth rate in the state of Connecticut between 2016 and 2026, and 10.6% nationally from 2018 to 2028. The pandemic may serve to increase demand for qualified civil engineers. Again, I think I shared last time that Governors Hogan and Cuomo said most recently, the memo from the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers to Governors Hogan and Cuomo stated that most recently, the 2017 infrastructure report card rated the overall condition of the nation's infrastructure as a cumulative grade of D+. And as the current crisis has shown, well-functioning infrastructure provides access to clean water, energy, and a free-flowing supply chain. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of problems getting toilet paper, all essential to limit the spread and impact of the pandemic and to mitigate damage and restore functions following other types of disasters. With me today is Dr. Bin Zhou. She is the Associate Professor of Civil Engineering with specialization in transportation and planning, and is here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? No questions? Hearing none, is that correct? Okay, I guess we're all set then. All in favor of approving the motion to suspend, not to suspend, to modify, back another section, the civil engineering Bachelor of Science program at Central Connecticut State University. All in favor, please, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. That was good. We're moving on to the next program, which is also at Central Connecticut State University. It's on page 52. It's significant modification in courses in the English program at Central Connecticut State University. May I have a motion?
I so move. Aviva.
We have Aviva. The second is Holly?
Holly.
Is that you? Okay, second is Holly. Okay, Dr. Gates.
Thank you. Central Connecticut State University seeks approval to modify a 120 credit program in English, leading to a Bachelor of Arts with a heightened focus on literature written in English. Dr. Marianne Fallon, Associate Vice President, will provide additional information.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. The department, thank you, Regent Harris, as well. The Department of English seeks to modify its BA in English by adjusting their core and elective requirements. The major requires courses in literature and linguistics beginning at the 200 level, as all CCSU students must complete the 100 level composition course as part of their general education requirements. all CCSU students are also required to take a 200-level literature course. In the former curriculum, students sometimes chose literature courses that would not count towards the English major. And since we have many internal transfers, this could disrupt their process towards degree. So the proposed changes broaden the core major requirements to capture these courses, thereby providing the students who internally transfer to the English program a more streamlined pathway to graduation. Minor changes include removing elective courses that are no longer offered. These changes require no resources to implement. The pro forma budget reflects typical operations and a strong program. Program enrollment averages 117 students in headcount enrollment, which include our BSED students, and 50 conferrals per year over the past 3 years, and that's just in the BA. Our graduates are successful at locating employment in Connecticut. According to the CT Department of Labor's Higher Education and Workforce Report Card, 74.1% of 2015 to 18 CCSU graduates majoring in English language and literature letters were employed within Connecticut. The average across all CSUs, however, is 70.4%. So we're very proud of our English program. With me today is Dr. Mary Ann Nunn, who's an Associate Professor of English and can answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from Board of Regents members? I'm not hearing any. Okay, the one question I had is if you're going to be a high school teacher and you have to have a major as well as a major in education, you have to have a double major, would this be a major that you would take?
Dr. Nunn?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Nunn, we can.
Okay. I beg your pardon, this is Mary Ann Nunn. We are not, in fact, making changes to the Bachelor of Science degree in secondary education that those students wishing to teach at the secondary level must complete to be accredited. This is the Bachelor of Arts credential. Now, it is possible for those students to go on to teach if they pursue a post-baccalaureate certification or do a Master of Education in Teaching. So it is certainly possible that our BA students would go on to teach, but that is not the fundamental focus of the credential.
Would they be able to do that with a much lower writing requirement? I mean, if they have the BA, would they have to take additional courses somewhere along the way, or would that be acceptable?
I think there has been some misunderstanding about what this proposal does. Before this proposed change, our BA candidates were able to include as one of their major electives one course in writing. And after this proposed change, our BA candidates can choose to include one elective towards their credential in writing. The only change we are making is editorial, that our list of possible courses from which students could choose still listed courses that have been revised in our writing programs and no longer exist. So in fact, there is absolutely no change in the possibility of electing a course in writing in our credential that studies literature. Let me just say, however, that a course in literature requires our students an extraordinary amount of writing. In my 300-level classes, my students submit 6 separate written assignments to me for evaluation feedback, and that's not at all untypical. So our students emerge from their study of literature with a tremendous amount of writing experience, but we also enable them, if they have a parallel interest in poetry, in writing poetry, writing fiction, writing creative nonfiction, exploring more specifically expository writing. We do count one of such courses, advanced courses, as a possible elective towards their degree in literature. So in fact, this proposal changes that in no way. All of the writing courses that they used to be able to count towards their credential, they can still count towards their credential.
Thank you. That was unclear in the proposal, so I'm glad that you clarified that. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the modification? Okay, and anyone opposed? Okay, let's go on to the next program then. Thank you very much, everyone. In mathematics, the BA at Central Connecticut State University, significant modifications again of the courses in course substitutions. It's on page 60 of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I think everyone spoke up, so Pat, you can choose two people to move and then a second of the motion. Dr. Gates.
Hey, thank you. I have next, okay. We're looking at Southern Connecticut.
No, we're
State
looking
University.
at the mathematics at Central. It's on page 60.
Page 60, mathematics, and Central Connecticut State University seeks approval to modify a 120 credit program in mathematics, leading to a Bachelor of Arts, and also requesting the approval of an addition, a concentration in pure mathematics consisting of 58 credit hours. So evidently the curriculum changes. There's some curriculum change as well as this addition of a concentration. Dr. Marianne Fallon, Associate Vice President, will provide also additional information, and she's having a great time here today working with us. Dr. Fallon.
Okay, Dr. Fallon.
Thank you, Regent Harris, and Dr. Gates again. The Department of Mathematical Sciences seeks to modify its BA in Mathematics with minor changes to its elective offering, but adding a substantive concentration in pure mathematics. The BA in Mathematics without any concentration requires 38 credits within the major and declaration of a minor. The proposed concentration in pure mathematics would require 58 credits within the major and no minor. The concentration in pure mathematics draws heavily from existing courses, requiring only one newly developed core course in either advanced topology or geometry, which is an area of distinction in our faculty. Those advanced courses also serve as elective options for teacher preparation candidates and students enrolled in the BSED. The proposed changes would not require any additional resources. The pro forma budget reflects typical operations and a strong program. The Mathematics BA has strong enrollments averaging approximately 100 students in headcount enrollment. That does not include our teacher preparation students, and 25 conferrals per year for the past 3 years. According to the CT Department of Labor, the job outlook is strong with a projected 27.4% growth rate in the state of Connecticut and 30% nationally for mathematicians. With me today is Dr. Marianne Anton, who is an associate professor of mathematics and can answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from members of the committee? I have one question. Aren't we really talking about two separate programs now? One is in pure mathematics. It's not really a concentration because it's a completely separate program. I mean, some of the courses are the same, but it's really a separate Bachelor of Arts program than the current BA in mathematics.
So the overlap between the mathematics BA and the BA with the concentration is substantial. So if you look at the program core courses, there's quite a bit of overlap in those courses with some additions to the BA with concentrations in pure mathematics. What really distinguishes the concentration in pure mathematics is effectively the additional depth that one goes into for that concentration. And in our curriculum, we have other programs of a similar nature. It's really a special, if you want to call it a specialization, we have similar programs, similar concentrations in actuarial science as well as statistics, and they all roll under this BA in mathematics.
Okay.
Somebody won.
Okay, anyone, are there any other questions? Okay, then hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. We are now at the next item is at Southern Connecticut State University. This is a very simple item. It's really a change of the review date for the MAT at Southern Connecticut State University. May I have a motion?
So moved. It's Holly.
Okay, Holly moved. A second? A second, please.
Yeah, it's Naomi, second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, and this is just because it took longer for the program to be started. We want to have an extension of the date for its to come back to us for review. Any questions? Dr. Gates, you may want to add something, or Dr. Hegedus?
No comments from me, Chair Harris.
Stephen Hegedus here. Yeah, it is a simple request. We started the program a year after, and so we only have a year's worth of data. We believe it would be better to go through the review process in 1 year's time when we'll have 2 years of complete data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All in favor of the resolution to extend the review of the MAT at Southern Connecticut State University for 1 year?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. The motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the replication of a College of Technology program at Capital Community College. It's found on page 71. May I have a motion?
So moved, Naomi.
Second, Aviva.
Okay, a motion and a second. Dr. Gates.
Thank you.
On page 8.
Capital Community College requests approval of the replication of a College of Technology program in Technology Studies, Data Science option, leading to an Associate of Science degree, and to grant this accreditation for a period of 7 semesters, beginning with this initiation. The Academic Dean, Dr. Maya LaPierre Drager, will provide additional information on this request.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. So like Dr. Gates said, we are seeking to replicate the existing College of Technology Studies data science option. Many of you are familiar with that since other schools have come forward with this. We're looking to provide students an opportunity to pursue careers and academic pathways in this critically important and emerging field of data science. And by doing so, we're going to leverage our faculty expertise to expand our existing mathematics and computer science offerings, and likewise to provide additional STEM programming to students in the Hartford area, where we have many long-established relationships with industry leaders such as Travelers, Aetna, the Hartford, Guardian, et cetera, who all have growing needs in data analytics. These programs obviously transfer into various universities, into data science, mathematics, or even computer science. And due to the COVID situation, we have made a decision to postpone our start date until fall 2021 in order to have a longer runway to kind of advertise this program to students and generate interest. And with me today, I have Dr. Andre Freeman. He's our Coordinator of Technology Studies at Capital, and he'll be here to answer any questions you may have as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any questions? I don't think there are questions related to this particular program at Capital, but I think what we have to look at as we approve the new programs, programs that are based on this, a replication, is how many we need and where we need them. I know this is a growing field, it's an important field, but I think after this one, we should be very careful to look at any other programs where they're located. Again, so not to compete with the existing programs. This one, I believe, I think we approved Tunxus last time. Is that true?
Correct. Correct, Chair Harris.
Okay. We now have 3 programs, Northwestern, Tunxus, and Capital. So it's kind of cautionary that if another institution kind of in this area wanted to start a program, that we would look, we have to be careful about that to make sure it doesn't draw off the enrollment at Capital or Tunxus, et cetera. Any questions, other questions, comments? I'll approve then the replication of the data science option AS degree at Capital Community College. Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. The next is also a Capital program because we already approved consular education and supervision at Southern, is Health Science Associate Degree at Capital Community College. It's on page 93. May I have a motion?
I so move, Aviva.
Second,
Neil.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dr. Gates.
Capital Community College seeks licensure and accreditation of a program in health sciences leading to an Associate of Science degree. And given what we face today in the midst of COVID-19 and possibly, dare I say, 20 and 21, we certainly look at the opportunity to provide more health professionals. On that note, Dr. Maya Lapierre-Dreger, Dean of Academic Affairs, will provide other information.
Thank you again, Dr. Gates. And yes, I look forward to presenting to you all another degree that will be, whereas the previous degree was a replication, this is actually the first of its kind. In the state of Connecticut, we're proposing to offer a new associate degree in health science. We currently have a certificate in health science, and there are numerous bachelor's degrees of health science throughout the state at our sister universities, but we do not have an associate degree. We believe that this program will provide a solid foundation in the principles of healthcare delivery, prepare students for admission to a broad range of health and human services for advanced and professional programs, provide knowledge and skills for non-clinical employment opportunities, provide numerous transfer opportunities into health baccalaureate degrees, and likewise provide opportunities for existing individuals who are displaced workers who are interested in entering the healthcare field. We do anticipate a fall 2020 start because we have an extremely large body of general studies students at our institution, about 1,000 students, and many of those students we believe are prospective and hopeful students to gain entry into a health-related field, but simply have not been able to at this time. We have approximately 450 students at our institution that are currently in selective admissions programs such as nursing, paramedic, radiology technology, medical assisting, and many of our other students, like I said, end up in general studies as sort of a placeholder. And so we believe this health sciences degree will be a much more viable option for those students to be able to pursue their aspirations to enter the health field in lieu of a general studies degree on their path towards baccalaureate. I also have with me Dr. Dawn Bunting, Director of our nursing program, here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there other questions? I guess I'm not hearing any. So I will, without any other questions, I'll take a vote on the motion to approve the new program at Capital Community College in health science. And are you going to start? I have one question. I just want to make sure that the motion is correct. Is this program, you're going to begin this one when?
This coming fall. We already have quite a few students that we've already talked to about this program. Many students that have not been able to be successful in our nursing program, for example, who would like to transition into this program, et cetera. So we are planning a fall 2020 start.
Okay. And you will look at those guidelines to make sure that you meet them, correct? That we voted on last time? Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. All in favor of the motion then?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We are now, there's one brief, no, this is not a brief item. The one following it is. This is a Board of Regents policy, College and Career Success 101, a new course. I want to thank for both Dr. DeSantis and Dr. Rosselli Navarro for all of their hard work getting actually getting this done and getting this written up and getting this to us for our action today. I think I mentioned in the beginning, I know I mentioned in the beginning, the need to make sure that the students admit to our community colleges end up graduating. We're trying to do that. Obviously, we'll never hit 100%, but we want to keep on raising those numbers, and particularly looking at the disparities that exist now between and among various minority groups. So I think this is really an important action, and I am going to call for a motion to approve of the resolution on page 136. Excuse me, on 106.
This is Naomi.
Okay, Naomi. And a second?
Holly.
Okay, Holly has seconded. Okay, Dr. Gates, I know what you're going to do. Turn it over to Dr. DeSantis, but I'm sure you want to set the groundwork.
Thank you very much, Chair Harris, and I too am very enthusiastic about supporting initiatives to increase the student success rates in the colleges or CSU community college students, as well as heighten the focus again on reducing the disparity that we find among our students who enter our institutions with the hope of getting those credentials, and many, unfortunately, far more than I have been pleased to see, far more fail to do so. And I think this is certainly a step. It's a national trend and practice in the right direction. We have a moral obligation to ensure that we facilitate and we fulfill the mission of our institutions. On that note, I would invite Dr. Greg DeSantis, AVP for Student Success and Academic Initiatives, and Dr. Fran Rosselli Navarro, Professor of Psychology, Manchester Community College, to speak to College and Career Success 101.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. This is Greg DeSantis, and thank you, Regents and Chair Harris. I'll echo some of what you've said. This has certainly been a long road to get to this point. When the board set forth the guided pathways work that we've been engaged in for a little over 2 years now. One of the first groups that was charged by Provost Gates almost exactly 2 years ago was the first year experience group. I have had the honor of standing before you now virtually with a few cornerstone proposals to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee of this guided pathways work, but this is in particular a cornerstone that I think we are very proud of, that we hope will change the direction of student success for students across the colleges and across our system and for the state. The item that you see before you today is a proposal for College and Career Success 101, which is a first-year experience course. It is a 3-credit standalone course that we expect will set students in motion to develop, in particular, their individualized plan for college and career success. The intention is that we have a course that will allow students to explore why they are here at college, explore items that will help them to succeed while they are here in college, and to think about where they might be headed. This is a serious equity issue for me in particular, because I think that this is an opportunity that is often provided to students at 4-year institutions, students who are likely to be more prepared for college and career success, but it is not one that is currently uniformly provided to all students at our community colleges. There are certainly colleges within our system that do drive this effort forward, but we want to make sure that for the sake of equity and for the sake of student success and for the sake of the state itself, that this is an opportunity that is uniform. So I'm going to, I've said a few words about it. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Roselia Navarra to tell you more about the process so far and where we would head if this proposal were to be approved by the committee and the board.
Good morning, everyone. This is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just 2 things before I get into that process. One is that I unfortunately scheduled movers before I knew I was going to be on this call, so I apologize if there's some background noise. And 2, I just wanted to note my appreciation for Dr. Harris's comments opening the meeting about the importance of our curriculum in advancing social justice and equity. And I think this is a particularly timely proposal in that regard. So Dr. Gates asked me to provide a little bit of background about the course and how it was developed. The course itself was developed by a team of faculty and staff from all 12 of the Connecticut community colleges. The individuals invited to this particular work group were all involved with first-year experiences at their home institutions. Dr. Gates charged the team in spring of 2018 to develop a common FYE course that would be for the consolidated community college. The group worked for about 18 months. We had assistance from Dr. Christine Harrington, who is a nationally renowned expert in first-year seminars, and she came to Connecticut and did quite a few workshops with us. And we finalized the course proposal with outcomes and sample assessments in December of 2019. I'd also like to note that even though the course was designed for this Future One college, the faculty involved were so excited that many of them are already moving to adopt it at their institutions right now. It has passed through the entire curriculum process at Manchester. Gateway, rather than adopting this new course, has simply pulled elements from it and revised their existing course for now. So there really is a lot of excitement about the course. It has a number of goals and outcomes, and it was designed with a few of these higher goals in mind. One was that we designed it with those guided pathways principles as a foundation. So one of our outcomes is that students will develop an academic and career plan over the course of the semester. It was also designed to meet general education outcomes of continued learning and information literacy, as well as develop critical thinking and communication skills. And lastly, it is a student success course, so it was designed to help students build the academic and personal skills that they need to be successful. And I think one of the most important skills we can teach our students is to open their minds to different perspectives and experiences. And so I think this course is really an ideal environment in which we can address issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity. I will add that diversity was not a required general education outcome at the time that we developed this course. So if this policy is approved, the FYE group needs to go back to their course proposal and add additional outcomes to meet that diversity requirement. And again, I don't see a problem with that given the other kinds of personal skills that we're building in this class that will fit right in. I think that's a pretty good summary of what we did and where we are. Are there questions?
Yeah, I think that, let's see if there are questions at this point. I think you have
this is Helena. Hello?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you if you had questions.
Oh, Helena, continue.
Oh, sure. So I do have a few questions. The first is, I'm sorry, there seems to be noise on the line. I hope it's not me. So the first question is just that this is going to be a mandatory course for all students to be taken within their first 9 credits. Is that right? Hello?
That's correct. This is Dr. DeSantis. That's correct.
So that's,
students would be expected to take it within their, they would be expected to take it within their first 9 credits. The proposal does have a fair amount of flexibility in that it, if passed, it would require the administration to make recommendations regarding which students might request exemption from taking CCS 101 with final decisions about that being made locally.
Okay. So that sounds like a general education requirement. Why wasn't this part of the Gen Ed proposal that we looked at the last meeting?
So I don't sit on that committee or oversee that work, so I can't speak to that directly, but I will say that this has been a cornerstone part of the guided pathways work that we've been moving forward for the last couple of years. It is designed to fit in, you know, at the time, all that existed were obviously the TAP courses that it could fit into and the competencies related to that. So we built it in that manner, anticipating that the general education core would potentially have a slot for this course, although, again, that will be a determination that will need to be made by the heads of each program and the curriculum committees therein.
But the heads of each program and the curriculum committees, if this passes today, would be required, they would be mandated to fit this course into their curriculum. So this seems like a bit of curriculum. Is it normal that things come to the Board of Regents before they pass through curricular processes?
Uh-oh, hello?
I think we're on hold.
I don't know what's happening. Someone, it sounds like someone. Okay.
Hello? Someone needs to mute their phone.
Someone has put us on hold, and therefore they can't hear that we're asking them to mute their phone.
Yep. Pat Riff, you are able to mute all lines now.
Okay, I have to go to my computer. I will.
Well, go to the computer, mute them all.
Looks like it stopped.
That sounds like a request.
Okay,
Thank you. Sounds like it's. I didn't do it, but glad it stopped. Okay.
Okay, Greg, back to you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of that actually, that's an interesting point, Kalina. I think what this policy is, if approved, is a policy that sets parameters about curriculum. It sets parameters that the leads of programs and an eventual curriculum committee for Connecticut State Community College would have to follow, just like the general education core itself or other proposals that might come forward might set parameters on programs. Similarly, you might see things like the normalization policy that will set parameters on programs and set expectations about what students, what the expectations are for programs themselves. So the proposal that you see before you today is going through a typical process for a proposal of that kind, although Provost Gates, that's certainly more of your department, and if I've left anything out, please let me know.
Dr. Gates, do you want to comment on that at all?
No, I agree with what Dr. DeSantis has said. It is a policy. It provides the parameters. All governing bodies have the authority to move forward a policy that directs, construct. Here, it's a policy one, and it is in no way providing any information specifically regarding the content of the course. So we have followed all of the curricular dispositional processes, at least in terms of the policy and the career and student success course, the parallel entity of the future state that it said we were going to follow. It would be quite atypical to have, by the way, Dr. Sasenko, it would be atypical to bring before any body, curricular body, that looks at a curriculum that doesn't even, or for an entity that has yet to exist. Well, this is what we have to really keep in mind. This is, even though many of our institutions, the community colleges, have decided to adopt or to modify their existing FYE courses, because FYE courses are offered already in many of our community colleges. This in itself is not an unknown. However, what we're doing is getting the board to endorse the parameters. And Greg's absolutely correct. That's what we talked about in moving this forward. Thank you. Thank you, though, for your very, very insightful question. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I understand that it's a parameter, but its net result actually is to insert a course into programs, right? And I think if this is adopted, program directors and designers will not have the option to eliminate that course. And the reason I ask why this wasn't part of the Gen Ed proposal is that it was part of the original Gen Ed proposal that did circulate to colleges, and there was quite the uproar because many programs were really worried that because of credit normalization, if they put this 3-credit course into their program, they would necessarily have to reduce the academic content in order to get the credits there. Now, I see that there is something in the report that suggests that there would be some adjustment of that normalization to accommodate this course. How does that work? Is that going to be sort of across the board? Anyone who needs it can just kind of bump the number of credits up?
Correct. It's the same way it has worked for any and all CSCU institutions who move forward a request to the provost at the system office for an exception. It's the same process. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now, so there's a bit of a tension here, right? Because there is a problem if this dilutes the academic content, surely. But there are cynics who might say that what we're asking people to do, I mean, the 4 outcomes of the course are really kind of, they're great, right? We're getting students to explore what they want to do and make a plan and actually see how that plan is to be executed, etc. However, there are those who might say that what we're in fact going to be doing if we do increase that credit load is asking students to pay for what they might have otherwise received as advising. They will now assume that cost at the price of 3 credits. And I know that there is a response to that because there's quite a case made that this is real academic content. And yet, at the same time, the claim about the academic content can't yet be substantiated for the reasons that you just mentioned in terms of it not yet being at that point. I am a little concerned about that, and I just want to make sure that we get that worry on record.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you stated it because that's one of the questions I asked Dr. DeSantis as we were discussing this. Is the assurance that there is academic content in there. There are probably requirements for obviously reading, for writing. I think writing is critical that that be in there, and other areas when we're talking about diversity, that there is enough material that's actually covered to make sure that it's academically sound. And I think that's something that we need faculty to attend to and to look at as the course goes forward. But I'm glad that you put that there. We'll have that in writing in the minutes.
Chair Harris, if I may add to that as well,
yes.
Just one more item on that point, that if in the staff report itself, there is a fair amount of information and numerous studies that have been done nationally about the effects of a first-year experience course, because I am also sensitive to the costs that students incur in attempting to complete a program at our colleges. The research demonstrates that students who enroll in a first-year experience course, as compared to similar peers in these research studies, graduate in less time and with fewer credits accumulated. So it is our hope that this is actually a net benefit to students in terms of the cost of programs, not even to mention the students who may discontinue, since there are numerous studies that demonstrate that students are likely to stay in college longer, from in some cases 1 semester longer to in some cases multiple years longer, and eventually completing their program.
Thank you. I think that's an important point. Okay, continue, Kalina. I'm sure you have another question.
Sorry, so Kalina again. So yeah, I saw that list of benefits. It's on, I think, page 117. And well, was curious though. So there are a lot of sources listed, a lot of benefits listed. What isn't specified is whether these studies were done in a place where the course is mandatory for all students, and I think that really makes a difference, right? You can look at this and say maybe that's a self-selection bias. People who take an FYE course are more likely to be interested in, getting themselves acculturated to college life. Yeah. You can also say that the opposite is true because we tend to herd the most at-risk students into FYE courses typically, right? So I see a lot of data points on the page, but they don't quite add up to information for me yet. And I saw the 10.5 pages of sources, so I know that you're immersed in the literature. How many, if any, of those studies were done with mandatory across the board FYE?
This is Dr. Rosselli. I don't know off the top of my head the exact number that were mandatory versus optional. There was a mix of both. Most importantly, though, there are also, and there aren't many, but there are a few studies that have actually done randomized trials so that students are matched on basic demographic variables and then randomly assigned to the course or not. And that is our hallmark standard for demonstrating an effect. And in those randomized trial studies, we see the same benefits for the FYE course compared to the control groups.
Thanks, that's good to know. And I noticed that you also highlighted as Nantuck's FYE, but didn't mention a couple of others. Is there a reason for that? And we have it at, I think, Naugatuck Valley and at Three Rivers. Were those as successful?
Those colleges didn't provide us data. As Nantuck data came from the Advising Leads Council.
Okay. All right. I have one more question, and it is just about, you know, the argument for it being worth 3 credits. There are a lot of claims about the outcome. So there, in addition to those 4 things that a student should leave the course with, there are also claims made about it sort of hitting a diversity aspect, critical thinking, writing, communication, information literacy. That sounds like a certificate program and not like a single course, right? That will be hard to assess. So which of those do you think, like which outcomes do you believe will be designated? What will it be assessed as? I heard something about diversity also.
So currently,
can you clarify? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fran.
So the course currently has 4. The proposed course and the one that was approved at MCC has 4 learning outcomes: creating the academic and career plan, demonstrating information literacy, critical thinking, and effective communication skills, identifying and using campus resources and engaging with the campus community, defining and applying college success and resilience strategies. I don't believe that it would be too ambitious to add a 5th outcome about, you know, learning to recognize and appreciate our diverse world to address the diversity issue. We believe it is a rigorous 3-credit class, and we have already developed assessments for each of the existing outcomes. So I have every confidence that the SYU work group could sit down over the fall semester, develop outcomes and assessments for a diversity requirement.
The diversity work group isn't scheduled to be formed until the fall, though.
Yes, and the course is not scheduled to be offered until fall of 2023. So that
okay,
development
so it
process,
could be modified after that.
Yeah, this sets that process forward.
So so the critical thinking, writing, communication, and information literacy sort of outcomes listed to justify its 3-credit load. Those are not going to be aspects of the course that are going to be assessed. Like it's not going to be held to that standard because it just, you have to make sure that a member of faculty is capable of handling all of that if that were the case. So those are not going to be areas in which the course is assessed, just the outcomes that were listed specifically. Is that correct?
If you're referring to assessing the TAP outcomes for writing and oral communication, then that is correct. The course provides introductory skills in those areas, not, it's not a writing class. It's not an oral comm class.
Right.
There is an assessment of some critical thinking skills. There is an assessment of information literacy currently built into the class.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to get ahead of what's been proposed here. Just to clarify again, I want to make sure we're certain about what's being proposed in the policy. The policy itself, the item reads in the proposal, ensure that CCS 101 fulfills one of the general education core competencies. We are presuming that the likelihood is that CLIL is the competency that is likely to be fulfilled by this particular course, since that is how it was originally built, but that has not been vetted yet. So, and this proposal itself does not mandate which competency it fulfills, since competencies over time themselves may shift, and other changes may be desired by the faculty and staff who are designing, assessing, and continuing to update the course.
Okay, I'm just looking at the section on page 119, why should it be worth 3 credits, and it lists, all of those things, critical thinking, writing, communication, and information literacy. So this course is not expected to meet the diversity requirement. Is that correct?
No.
I couldn't quite make sense of some of the things about diversity that were listed here. I'm not sure about the diversity requirement or not. So it's not, it is or it is not?
So the phrasing.
Sorry, page 120. House is CS 101, suited to fulfill the general education core diversity requirement. Is this potential or is this the expectation that it will?
The expectation that it will, based on how diversity is defined.
Okay.
So again, it sets the process forward.
Okay. So I want to make sure that another thing is on record. I really hope this course is not vetted for diversity, personally. Just because I don't think that, and of course, we have to find out what the diversity group comes up with when they do meet in the fall. But all of this taken together is very well-meaning. I love a lot of the things that are in here. I really like the highlighting of the fact that there are a lot of, I think the way it's put is middle-class norms that some students may not be familiar with that are necessary to succeeding in college. All of those things are wonderful. However, to expect that a course focused on acculturation into sort of, mainstream, society or whatever it is, to expect that that should meet a diversity requirement because it simply acknowledges the diversity of it. I just don't think this course could ever have enough space within it to meet a diversity requirement when it is already so unfortunate that a student can get through a college education having sometimes never read the words of a person of color, never been associated, never been become familiar with the theory of a person of color. So I just want to really suggest that we wait and see what that diversity group comes up with and that we take very seriously what education diversity means and understand that it's not just about introducing the less privileged to what all the rest have, but also the other way around. And this course aims to do so much. I don't think it can take that seriously. I'm not sure who would be qualified to do all of the things, right? So I want to make sure that because this is a moment where we are very aware of the state our country is in and how seriously we need to take these things. And I really don't, this seems dismissive if we're going to pack it into this particular course. So please hear me on that. That's it, other than I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this did go through regular college processes and it was rejected by the faculty. And the fact that it has reached here and is going in the opposite direction appears to me to be a bypassing of the typical, I know that you've told me it isn't, so perhaps not, perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but this does seem to be curriculum, and it is here. And it went from the FYE work group to the Guided Pathways work group. And I know the advising council recommended that this would be a mandatory course for all students, but I don't know if the actual work group made that recommendation. You should know that. It was rejected.
Aina, do you know why it was rejected by the campuses?
It was a significant concern about precisely that tension that I talked about before, that either programs would be, because people are really stressed already trying to get their credits down to the required amount, and it's really tough to do that, right? So there was this tension between, are we going to have to dilute academic content and keep credits at the numbers that they are? Are we going to have to increase the number of credits and essentially ask students to pay for what we had hoped advising would normally provide them with? And that's the reason it for that.
Thank you. And I think the attempt is to address this, and this is something we'll have to continue discussion, that there can be exceptions to the normalization policy in those programs, and they'll probably be particularly some TAP programs that are pretty full at the moment. The other thing is I think it's important to understand what Greg said, and we have to look at the research as we move forward, is that in the end, it probably saves students money because they know what they're doing and they don't take courses that don't help them achieve a important goal, a degree. So I think, I think that that is an important argument. Plus the fact that we will have allowances for additional credits. Those two things were thought through, and I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate some of the comments, some of the concerns on the campuses, but I think they have been addressed as best they can.
Okay. Merle, this is Naomi.
Yeah, thank you. I know.
Oh, wait, I don't want to cut off. Colleen, are you finished?
I am, I think.
I'm never finished for the moment. Let's have a little review of what we're doing and what our concerns are. And stop me when I say the wrong thing. So we're being asked to adopt this proposal, which will then go to the board meeting, that sets a framework for a course that will be required for, I assume, matriculated students, those on the path to degree, in the first 9 credits they take at the community college. And we're outlining the kinds of things that will be covered in the course. The course won't start till 2023. And assuming it's approved, between now and 2023, it will go through course development that takes, that considers the academic content and considers whether the course can be offered within the normalization rule of 60 credits for an associate degree. Is that correct?
The only thing, Naomi, is it may vary from program to program when it comes to normalization.
Depending on your area, the academic area in which you get your degree.
Correct. Greg, you may want to respond to what you just said. I'm sorry.
That's correct. And one other thing I'd add is that just want to emphasize that there have been 2 years of course development for the course that hopefully will be offered in 2023 already. That development will continue as you've described.
And the course will then be back at the board for approval. We'll go through, for lack of a better term, the normal process of board approval of new courses.
No, we don't approve courses. We approve programs. We never approve courses.
Board approval of new programs, or this is that approval?
I would suggest that this is largely, this is largely that approval. It will go through the academic course approval process. Again, Provost Gates, if I have any part of that wrong, please let me know.
Correct. I mean, I want to understand, I think, the very important point that Kalina raised as to for diversity, for instance. How does faculty get input into the development of this between now and 2023 to know that their ideas have at least been heard.
I think that would be the same for any course being hopefully vetted for the diversity component of the general education core for Connecticut State Community College as already approved by the board. So that vetting process would be similar in that we would hope to ensure that the course met the expectations for that requirement. I just want to add one thing here, and it's not what's been asked, but I'll raise it since it's an important part, I think, of a student's education that we embed conversations about equity and diversity and inclusion throughout the student's academic career. What we're talking about today is just one piece of one course, and I'm not just talking about CCS 101, I'm talking about the diversity component itself, that hopes to infuse some diversity conversation into a student's educational process. My hope is that eventually, and this might take time to get there, that sort of conversation would be mandated to be infused throughout a student's higher education process. That would mean more than what is on the books right now. That's just a bit of editorializing from me, but I think it's important to note that what we are building into CCS 101, or what we hope to build into CCS 101 if the policy is approved, should, in my opinion, really be considered only one small piece of a student's diversity and equity and inclusion education.
Yeah, and absolutely. Let me just ask a couple other quick questions. So because this is a course, it will be eligible for you can use your financial aid for it?
Correct. It would be part of the student's program, and any student who is otherwise aid eligible should be able to receive aid for this course.
And also, finally, I just would like to be on record as not being a fan of adding a requirement that you need more than 60 courses to get your associate's degree. We spent so much time over so many years trying to get it in gear that I worry that it will just start the slippery slope uphill again of more than a required number of credits consistent across the system and consistent with what other institutions are doing, both not in our state, but in other states, in terms of normalizing credits.
Regent Cohen, if I can address that, I share that belief fully. That, and I think that is in and of itself a cornerstone of guided pathways, that programs be normalized to what is actually necessary for the student to gain the skills and the knowledge and the education that they need to be successful in the career or in the career path that they are in. I want to emphasize that it's my belief that for most programs, this would be able to fit within the 60 credits that you're describing. The flexibility that we've added here is for programs that are proverbially packed to the gills and can't possibly offer the course within those 60 credits. And we already see those exceptions to normalization policy for many of those programs. So again, my hope is that this does two things. One, in most cases, it doesn't add more credits to a student's program. And two, for that individual student, in many cases, it actually decreases the number of credits attempted as students have developed their individualized plan and can be more certain that the courses that they're taking are the right ones in the right program for them, at least at that moment in their life, that will lead to a job that has a family sustaining wage. So I think the right way to think about it is that in most cases, this will not end up increasing the number of courses that any given student takes.
Is it fair to assume, Greg, that is it fair to assume that there'll be some kind of a process, guideline, protocol, whatever you want to call it, that explains to the various campuses and disciplines, I guess to the various disciplines, how to determine, or the factors to be considered in determining whether this fits or whether it needs to be beyond the 60 credits?
Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, the policy proposal directs both the provost of the system as well as the leadership of Connecticut State Community College to do so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm sorry, I have one more. It's Kalina.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
I guess I'm still kind of trying to fully understand how, we're saying that this is a parameter, but we are talking about a course. And especially this hesitation, we really don't want to be pushing programs past 60 credits. There's a sense in which I believe if this passes, most programs, unless they're granted some exception, will be required to insert this into their curriculum. And if we're trying to keep it at 60 credits, the issue is whether we are in effect asking people to remove some other course that they once found essential to the content of that program. And in fact, mandating that they do so with some exceptions. This sounds like curriculum to me and not a parameter, and I thought that those things were usually initiated by faculty. Again, I may misunderstand the process, but it does sound like it directly impacts the curriculum and the legitimacy of programs in this way. So I am a little worried about that, and what I'm very worried about, because we are talking about equity here, and yes, it's so important to get students with credentials into the workforce, earning a wage, but it is also very important to make sure that those students are adequately educated, and in a way that doesn't just get them employed when they leave our colleges, but 20 years from now, they are still employable. And I'm concerned, again, about this dilution of the academic content, and I want to remind us that faculty pushed back against this really hard, and that's why it was removed from the Gen Ed proposal, and yet now here it is again. So, I really want to, hold on one second, please. I really want to make sure that we are, I guess I'm trying to conceive of it correctly, and I'm also really concerned that we are, who's more familiar with the consequences of students being pushed through an inadequate education program than us at the community colleges, because we're on the receiving end of it from K through 12 very often. I think that's a real concern. I think that we should really think about what faculty, and let it go through that process again, and let it come to let faculty come to some agreement on whether this is feasible or not. That's it. I'm done.
One of the things I think is interesting is that we're going to talk about PA 1240 in a few moments, and that was a proposal that came out of the legislature, and faculty did not like the proposal, but then did work with it to make it so that the community colleges they were involved in the actual construction of the program, even though they weren't involved in the requirement that there had to be change. And we are seeing that it is successful. We're getting, it's not probably exactly where we all want it to be, but we are getting more people through the system with degrees, and we are we're decreasing the cost because they're not taking as many developmental courses at the front end. So, but yet they're doing okay because the courses have been modified, et cetera, et cetera. So I sort of see it like that we're not constructing the actual course content, just as in developmental ed, we didn't construct exactly how the programs worked. We had academics working on that. We had committees working on that. And the result has been, we're moving in the right direction. And that's what I see this as. We're not, we're setting the fact that this has to happen, but not telling exactly how it has to happen. We're not talking about what's in this course at all. And so I see it as that same kind of parallel, that sometimes setting the direction is what's needed, and it's up to faculty to fill in the blanks and make the academic part of it substantive. That's my comment. Other comments, questions from board members? I guess we're ready to vote then. I know it's a very complex question, and I do appreciate all of the comments we have. I think they are only going to make sure that we watch this very closely as it moves along, and that faculty does get involved in that. Okay, motion has been made. All in favor of moving the resolution before you on, well, it starts on page 106 and it continues on to, I think, page 107. May I have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
That's one other person. I think we have. I don't know who voted so far. I know
Aviva, aye.
Okay. Ollie?
Ollie, aye.
Okay. Thank you. It's so hard to tell on the phone.
Yep.
Okay, we have 3 votes in favor. Then we will move this forward to the board at the next meeting. And I think it was a really good discussion. Thank you. Okay, the next item is a very quick one. We're going into a important report on PA 1240.
Excuse me, Chair Harris, the extension of the teach-out deadline for discontinued programs.
Yeah,
BOR policy.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing that. I said it was a very quick item before we get to the page 1240.
Okay, thank you.
Page 136, and this is to allow Provost Gates to approve extensions in teach-outs when there is a student that is having a problem completing the program for very key reasons like financial, et cetera, and we don't want this to come back to the board. The deadlines are in our resolutions. I feel personally that this is an important action to allow the provost to make those decisions. So I'm calling for the motion to approve on page 136 extending teach-out deadlines. May I have a motion?
I so move. Aviva moves.
Second. Holly.
Okay, motion and a second. Any questions? Comments?
It's Naomi. I'm going to vote for this, but are we going to have, I understand extenuating circumstances are not ordinary, so we can't come up with a list of which will be approved and which will not. I'm interested in 2 things. How will students be notified, number 1? And number 2, could we, the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, at some point get a report of how this is going?
I think, first of all, I think this is rare. This is the first time I believe that this has happened. I haven't heard of it before at all. And secondly, what happens is that the academic leader at the campus will be monitoring which students haven't completed and will be working with those that haven't. And in some cases would be going, rare cases would be going to Provost Gates.
Because we have a policy now about teach out, correct?
We give them a end date on teach out with every program, that the program has to be taught out by a certain point, and that's when we approve a termination. We have that. It's not a general policy, it goes with the individual program. There has to be a teach out, and each program describes how they're going to do it when we approve the termination.
And if I may, Chair Harris, if I may speak to this, this is very unusual. Generally, these requests don't come forward, but in this case, if the program were discontinued, given the information we had transmitted to the Office of Higher Ed, the student would be ineligible for financial aid. So this is a very unusual case, but we had to bring it back to you to get this approved so that then we can move this forward to the Office of Higher Ed to change their data.
Okay, thank you. Works for me.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor then of the motion to approve the policy on page 136?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. And last but not least, a really important report. I hope you've had a chance to read it, and I'm going to call on Dr. Gates to introduce it.
Thank you. We are very excited. Thank you. We're very excited to receive the PA 1240 progress report, which provides insights into all the effort led. In part, I give certainly credit to Dr. Elsa Nunez and her leadership role, Mike Bukaris and Mike Stefanovich-Wall, and the council, who very much been involved, as well as J.D. Matheson from our own Office of Institute and Research, that provides insight into the impact that embedded programs have had on our students in the community college. So at this point, Dr. Bukaris, who will speak to this?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Just wanted to make sure. This is the sixth full year of implementation. We began, full implementation of PA 1240 began in the fall semester of 2014. There were some smaller projects that were done, pilot projects earlier, but system-wide implementation occurred in fall of 2014. And so now we have, 6 cohorts of students that have gone through. I'm not going to, obviously, there's not time to go through the full report, but PA 1240 was enacted under circumstances that were very challenging for community colleges. And I've discussed that in the introductory part of the report. As indicated, Connecticut has had the dubious distinction of being the state with the largest achievement gap, coming out of our public schools. And that, combined with the open door policy of the community colleges, has presented I should say a challenge. It's not a problem. It's really a challenge, because we exist to provide academic opportunity, academic and career opportunity to all Connecticut residents, and at the same time we want to make that access available but we also have to maintain a quality of our coursework so that the really only responsible way of addressing that challenge has been to provide students who enter the schools or colleges lacking in the necessary communication and mathematics, quantitative thinking skills with support in order to participate fully in the programs that we offer. So prior to PA 1240, several of the colleges had multiple layers of developmental coursework. And, you know, quite honestly, what PA 1240 added were those at the higher developmental levels, an embedded course was offered. And so that took the place of, in many schools, it took the place of a higher level developmental class.
Please, everyone mute.
So PA 1240, the key features of PA 1240 were to add the embedded level, maintain one level of intensive, what is developmental education, and add a transitional level for students that were whose placement testing indicated that they were very far below what it would take to get benefit from one semester of developmental or intensive level education. One of the requirements, another particularly important requirement, was to use multiple measures to place students in their academic coursework in their initial classes. Up to that point in time, we had been relying solely on AccuPlacer, and so the notion that a single standardized test was placing students correctly was challenged by the legislators, and therefore multiple measures were called upon. One of the areas that was not, rather was part of the bill that we have it made limited strides in, was there was a call for, by 2016, that Connecticut high schools would develop a process to assess their students' level of readiness in a manner so that they would work basically with the colleges to make sure that as few students as possible needed remediation by the time they graduated. And that, as far as we can tell in our report and in our looking at the situation, has largely not occurred. Part of that had to do with there was, I think, a hope that the Smarter Balanced test in the high schools was going to help provide some of that information, and then Smarter Balanced was no longer part of the high school testing regime, and it was replaced with SAT. So I want to say that the process through which PA 1240 was implemented owes a great deal to the faculty work of the English instructors at CSET, representing all 12 of the colleges, as well as the math basic skills and math issues groups at the time. I believe they've converged to be the current CMAC group. But this was really a process that was driven by faculty input. And I want to mention that early in the process, there was an attempt to discuss, anyway, a top-down approach where we would have a centralized group telling the faculty what needed to be done and how to do it. And we resisted that. The advisory group resisted that. And as a result, I think, as a result, we got tremendous faculty input. There was a lot of, Regent Harris is correct, there was a lot of concern about the policy or about the law. There were various, drafts that were being released. And once we were able to engage faculty and engage them in local decision-making, so it wasn't a top-down. The advisory group did not recommend that top-down approach. And once we were able to engage faculty, we got the benefit of really hundreds of experts who could help to make this program or this legislation implemented in a way that did not harm students, and as we'll see, has had a positive effect on student acquisition of their gateway math and English courses. So we did not, people were encouraged on their campuses to work within the framework of the legislation and develop curriculum that made sense for the students that they served and worked with on a day-to-day basis. And that was, in my mind, that was a game changer as far as the implementation of this, because when you really are inclusive with faculty, the resources that they can provide, the insights that they can provide, the details that you wouldn't see from far up in a top-down type of a thing that make a difference from one campus to the next, really, in my mind, made a big difference as far as the implementation of this and some of the successes that we're seeing, as well as, some of the things that we, are some of the recommendations that we have. So I would just say, there's other background in the report, but I wanted to highlight that in terms of the development. As far as the results are concerned, we have seen some positive results. The group the group that benefits the most from this, that has benefited the most from PA 1240 is that group that is that tests just slightly below the cutoff for the college, for college coursework. And you see those are in your report, those are subgroup 1E and subgroup 1M. Those are students that have been enrolled in the embedded course. And, their placement, the placement process used at different schools indicates that they are on the border of being ready for, direct entry into English 101, but indicates that they need support. And we did indeed see that the embedded model worked for that group of students well. If you look, I don't know what page it is on your packet, but it's page 10 of the report. You see that more students in all three levels. No level. The three subgroups. This subgroup 1 is just slightly below the cutoff. Subgroup 2 is right in the middle. Students that were, would always have been assigned into a developmental or an intensive level course. And then subgroup 3 is the group that is, really most likely to be in transitional, or students that would have repeated the lowest level of development because of their of the very low level of skill that they brought to the that they showed up upon entry into college. And so we see increased enrollment, and enrollment in English 101 is a big deal because English 101 especially is a key course for fulfilling or as a prerequisite for taking other courses throughout the college career. We also see that the pass rates increased, again, for all groups. Clearly very, very important in the subgroup, in that first subgroup 1. One of the things, and again, we saw that for math, We saw it for, we saw it for English. We saw it in mathematics, increased percentages of students enrolling. Some of the math pass rates were not as dramatic as what we saw in English. But what we did not see is the longer term success, changes in progress toward degree, and there's a couple of reasons for that, but we have some evidence that the students in the subgroup 1E, they seem to accrue about 3 more credits over the first 2 years than that same group did, that same cohort did prior to PA 1240. As far as graduation rates, the 150% measure is somewhat problematic because most of our students will not remain full-time throughout their careers. So graduating in 3 years as opposed to 2 is, even for very successful students, we see that a 4 or 5 year measure is more appropriate for those that are retained and making progress toward their degree. JD did an alternative to graduation for us called the success rate, which looks at both those who transfer as well as those who graduate. And we did see an increase of, in that highest group, about 2% from 19% pre-PA 1240 to 21% post-PA 1240. I would say that in this area, this is one of the areas that you'll see in our recommendations that we are making the recommendation that we need to continue to study what goes on after these students successfully complete their math and English. For a long time, we looked at math and English as the most important courses and the reasons why students were not completing their degrees, because they were frustrated or retaking courses at the English, just to get out of the first level. And what we're seeing is that, yes, this has improved credit accumulation slightly. It has improved the success rate slightly. But there's something else going on after these students develop these skills. And so while it was important to address the English and math attainment skills, achievement skills, it was not sufficient to make as big of a difference as we had hoped it would. I'll go to our recommendations, and then if you want to ask questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
Thank you.
The first recommendation that we made is that we were made aware as a group that the resources allocated for PA 1240 were in some cases at some schools not sufficient for every student who qualified for the embedded level of coursework. And it was mostly the embedded level that was, that not every student who qualified, there were not necessarily enough seats for them to take that course. And so one of our recommendations is to make the intensive and embedded courses available, as well as support that goes on with those courses, available for every student that qualifies and apply and registers in a timely manner. We know that, in some of our colleges, students register, very late in the registration process, and it's not possible to accommodate all of their needs when they're registering, a week into classes or the last days before classes begin. But that resources be allocated so that schools, based upon their past results in terms of their placement tests, that students are able to offer those courses to every student who qualifies for them, because both the intensive and the embedded courses have been very successful in this process. of helping students to reach their academic goal of taking their initial academic objectives, I should say, of passing English 101 and their Math Gateway course. We're also recommending, again, that funding also be adequate to support the best practices that have been identified, such as the in-class tutoring and the technical support, technological support that the colleges individually have been identifying as being effective and important in the success of students. Another area that we would like to continue is, I mentioned research before, but also research. We had planned on being able to access research, on the effectiveness of different coursework. And we think that the different approaches, we had a period of time where faculty throughout the system developed curriculum. There seemed to be somewhat of a convergence on what was being done for students. But we still think it's important to look at the different forms of curriculum and seeing if one seems to be more effective than the other. However, we want to emphasize that even though we believe that this research should be done, it may not yield one approach that's more effective than the other. It may be that just things like smaller class sizes, more time on task, that both methods provide is the real factor that makes the difference, not necessarily nuances between the curriculum of one approach and the curriculum of another. And I would say, as I said, even though we started out with faculty, coming up with some very a range of programs and approaches and courses that would address students' needs, when we looked at it even 2 or 3 years later, we saw a convergence, as far as what was being offered throughout the system. And really what we're offering throughout the system has far more similarities than there are differences. We also recommend, and I know President Nunez spoke to you last year about the convergence on a limited number of placement tools. One of the recommendations that we had is that, we recognize that it's important to have a limited number, but we don't think we should stagnate and just hold to that one limited number. We think that we should continue to explore other options for placement as they become available. Changes in technology, changes in some of the research that becomes available to us. And even, right now we are in fact using, even though SAT and GPA were already parts of the multiple measures, their increased use under these circumstances and some concerns about the appropriateness of the new AccuPlacer placement instrument is leading us to examine new ways and more efficient ways and better ways to assess student readiness. And I think that's something, the multiple measures component of PA 1240 was an important step in making new ideas about how to place students available, or they really didn't make them available, but it gave us the option of doing that. And we got a lot of new information, and I think we need to continue to explore that. That was another one of the recommendations that came out of our report. An equally important recommendation was that there has been, the committee noted, and that there has been, again, a new wave of thinking about making everything embedded. And what we got back from CSET and I believe from CMAC as well was a real stress on the importance that embedded approach is not the answer for every student, and that our process of assessing student readiness is placing many students at the embedded level, but the intensive level is also very, very important and has been shown to be very, very effective for students. And many of the English departments have found that after just one semester of the intensive level, students are ready for that gateway English, but they would not be ready for that. They were not ready upon admission for the embedded. And I think that one of the key differences is that the intensive level pays a lot more attention to a balance of reading and writing, whereas the composition levels, there's certainly reading in every course, but the emphasis is on composition, writing, whereas some students really need every bit as much remediation in their ability to read as they do their ability to express themselves on paper. So again, we thought that the multiple levels, the embedded and the intensive, were both continue to be very important as far as that, as far as the structure of coursework available to our students is concerned. As I said before, we also recommend that we continue to look at, now that we've increased the percentages of students passing the Gateway English and the Gateway Math courses, we want to look and see what's happening at that next level. We would expect to see a lot more credit accumulation. We would expect to see, once we start to look at the 4- and 5-year graduation rates, we'll hope to see that difference also being made. And finally, I started out by talking about this, but to put it bluntly, the faculty rescued this program. There were potentials for major problems for our students, and by having faculty involvement, people who worked with those students daily, who had experience, they were able to make this program student-friendly. They were able to make it effective and challenging for students, but they were also able to ensure that the students on their campuses had the support that was necessary to make this challenge. And I'll just give you a quick example. The first year that this was implemented at our campus, faculty were like at the intensive level, because it's a more aggressive course. It moves faster. We're very concerned at midterms that students were not looking like they were going to make reach the objectives by the end of the semester. And people hung in there. They made adaptations, and by where they used to make the progress that they had used to make, during the first, say, 8-9 weeks, we started to see occurring a little bit later. And that was evidence that the curriculum was more rigorous, but with support, these students were able to were able to adjust, and were able to make great strides and meet the challenges of that curriculum. And having faculty who were sensitive to that, who understood that things had to be implemented on the fly, and then would incorporate that into subsequent courses, made a difference. And so, I think that it was, we concluded that report, the faculty, and again, it's not just faculty, it was also the local administrators who worked with their faculty through those local decision-making processes to make sure that the decisions and the implementation worked for the students that showed up at their college, made sense. That process and the use of resources and things like that done at the local level seemed to make a real difference for the students. And so, one of our recommendations is this was, the law itself was a top-down approach, but the implementation wasn't. And we think that it would have been a better process if the faculty were included from the outset, because their insights in the designing of the change in policies would have made the whole operation much smoother from the outset.
Thank you.
Oh, that's it. Sorry.
That it? No, okay. I just didn't want to interrupt you at the conclusion. I think it's a great, report. I think we need to keep following this as we move along. I think you have pointed out some important things to be aware of, how we implement things. I think that is important. And I think we will be aware of that. One thing that struck me when you were talking about your recommendations, from what Greg DeSantis said, is that Manchester Community College apparently is going to implement the first year, a student success course in the fall. It would be interesting to use that, do some research on the group of students that are in developmental ed courses that also take that first year course in other campus that's not doing that next year, because there will be some, and not every campus is doing that, and certainly not every campus is using the content that's been developed by faculty for that course. So I think that would be an interesting research project to see if that does make a difference, since we're not really happy with how many complete, even though they're doing much better. It would be interesting to see if we add that new perspective, if that does make a difference with that population. That's just a thought to bring to your committee.
That would be the type of research that we should look at. I can tell you that Norwalk has, where I work, Norwalk has had an FYE course, first year experience course, very similar content and, with career exploration, and it has had some effect, but what we seem to be seeing here, and again, that's why we recommended more research, is that that the support is needed later. It's a continued type of support that seems to be needed once students get beyond that first year. We think that the FYE or the freshman year experience course is a great idea. But what we do is we notice that its impact is not as long-standing as we would hope, and so I think that the real support needs to be continuous for students, and it's expensive. The thing is to get people the support they need. It requires. It really requires full-time people, both faculty, counselors, advisors, to be able to provide that support to students in adequate numbers.
This is actually David Levinson.
Yeah, David?
Oh, yeah, no, if I could just add, I think what Mike is saying is really important, but I think the holistic case management that we have passed will go a long way, so we will have that level of support throughout a student's career.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly, the Pathways model does have that. And we've talked about increasing advisement. We did that at the last meeting significantly. So if we're able to do that, I think it all has to come together. I think you're absolutely correct. Are there comments, questions from members of the committee?
Go ahead, Naomi, you go first.
Thank you, Mike. This is a fabulous report, easy to understand and very thorough, and I really appreciate it. I have a nerdy question. When you get to your recommendations where it says resources impact the extent to which colleges are able to make intensive and embedded courses and support available for their students. Do you have a price tag for how much money we're missing if everyone who could have availed themselves of it didn't get it because we didn't have enough money?
That kind of a price tag is hard to. I don't have I should say no. It's just I don't have a price tag. Sometimes I don't quite understand how that gets calculated. I do know that these classes will, you know, the students are certainly paying for this instruction, but they're smaller classes. And rather than having, you know, the result is rather than having people take 2 classes in consecutive semesters, they're getting additional support in 1 semester. That's the embedded model. And, but as far as, you know, the instructional support, we, at Norwalk, we did not have that problem, but we did hear, and CSET reported back to us that there were schools that were struggling to provide a seat in these classes for every student who was eligible. But I don't have a price tag, partly because I don't know exactly how these the cost of these things are calculated. I do know that there was, you know, that at some schools their models used in-class tutors and in-class tutoring, and you know those kinds of things are not that expensive per class. But when you have a larger school, then it, you know, obviously we, you know, colleges. I'm trying to think. You know, a school the size of Norwalk, for example, may have like 40 sections of English 101 in the fall semester. Maybe even, I may even be underestimating that. And, you know, 12 or 13 embedded sections and about that number in the intensive level. So when you have lots of classes, it, you know, it does become more expensive.
Naomi, I think that's something we need to investigate. I think you're absolutely right. We need to see some numbers that might make sense to us, that we can decide what we're getting now, because we have put special funding into this. The legislature has, and what our needs really are.
Well, and I guess I should ask the other part of it. You don't have to tell me now, but not only how much money, but how many students.
Okay.
If you're finished, Naomi, I want to ask a question.
I'm more than finished. Thanks.
Yeah. The report was fabulous, and it's an area in which I have great interest because we seem to lose a lot of students right at the outset, and this is really where we have to focus, it would seem to me. But maybe I'm misunderstanding something. English 101 is one of the first courses you would take. I would assume from this report, it's the basis of all the other courses. And if that's the case, why is the measurement? It was on page 9 of your report, or 146 of what we got. It says it was measured, the subgroup, within 3 years of attendance. Does that mean some people don't even take that for 3 years of attendance?
Well, that's a great question. I think what you see is that many of those who would not take it in 3 years of attendance would have been people that dropped out.
That's what I would think. What else could they take? What could they be taking instead of this?
No, because again, the way we measured this is we took everybody who came in and tested, you know, into the developmental or the intensive level, embedded level, and we looked at those students based upon common Accuplacer scores and their progress. So, you know, that was one of the measures we looked at. A number of students, you know, they would drop out. There may be a number of students that, you know, repeatedly took some lower level course as well. But the English 101 could be the first course that students who come to us prepared to take would take. But again, we have a number of students that are not prepared to take that.
Mike, it has to do, this is Elsa, it has to do with the prerequisite, Aviva. If this course is not a prerequisite, then the student can get into other courses and not having taken this. Where this course is a prerequisite, having successfully completed it, you get them to take it early. And it's different from one community college to the other.
I see.
Yes,
So sometimes this is not a prerequisite to a college level
Right.
course.
For certain courses.
If that's the answer, because I had the impression that this was a prerequisite to almost every college level course.
No, it varies among the community colleges. For the most part, it is, but not always.
And
I
Viva,
see.
Viva, it also varies depending on the program you're in. Yeah, for example, at one point, and I don't know if it's still true, you didn't have to pass English 101 to take your introduction to early childhood education. And in various fields, there are always one or two courses that students definitely can take without English 101, because sometimes a student reacts better to a course that's the start of a career path. They have an interest in it. But the importance is that they take English 101 by the time they have 9 credits or so. I mean, you can't put it off that students do that, and that's not healthy. But there are a lot of programs that you can start, probably your culinary arts programs. I mean, there are a number of programs that you can get into without English 101.
Yeah. And we're not talking about certificate people. We're strictly talking about associate's degree people.
That's correct.
We're actually talking about, we're talking about everyone who was tested, because we assess everyone when they come to make sure that they're in the right courses to start with. So
but
whether they're going
they don't know necessarily whether it's a certificate they want or a 2-year degree. That isn't a question at the outset.
You know, I think we might have some certificate programs where you can start more courses without having reached the 101
I would
level.
think so. But I'm just questioning your cohort that you measured.
It's mixed. It's mixed, both certificate and bachelor's degree and associate degrees too.
Okay.
Right.
That would answer the 3 years also. Thanks very much.
Any other questions? I personally want to thank Dr. Nunez for guiding this process for a long time, and I remember I was always anxious for more information, and she kind of said, be patient, be patient.
And you were. Trustee Harris, you were very patient, very patient. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? It's a very good report. It gives us a lot to think about. I think we need to think about what we really want to make sure happens, you know, as with your recommendations as we move forward. So I thank you, and we will be looking at those carefully to see if there's anything we need to do to make sure things happen.
I would like to ask a question. I would love to get updates from this area from time to time. What do we expect to do or to get? This is, I think, essential.
Well, we've had updates practically every year around this time of the year. Unfortunately, you know, they haven't been as comprehensive because we didn't have time to get the data. But I agree. I think we should have a yearly update on what's happening. I think would be very healthy.
Well, yeah, we're happy to do that. We're happy to do that.
And I can't thank J.D. Matheson enough for the tireless work that he put in to get us this data. It is a very time-consuming process, and it's going to be stickier as we go on. We're looking at this stuff in more depth and in different ways. And so I think that, you know, that's just one of the things that can be very helpful is as we continue to go, we continue to devote a lot of research attention to it.
JD was the perfect person to work with us because JD really has the patience, and he's a great listener and was a very big contributor to the work of this committee.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess this brings us to the end of our agenda. You have information items that you know are before you so that they can be sent to the Office of Higher Education for their records, but we don't need to do anything with them. And so, anything else, Dr. Gates, or can I ask for adjournment?
That's everything. Thank you so much for your leadership and for the Regents
time
I
and effort.
move that we adjourn.
Okay, second with that. Aviva, I'm sure we'll second it.
Second, thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great meeting.